In this section, we are going to work on the topic of the transformation of the ego state. Up to this point, you already know that the state of the ego is not static and that it changes depending on the circumstances of your reality and the internal energies to which you are exposed throughout your life. The problem is that there are people who do not have enough psychic flexibility to transform their ego state at will. Or there are cases where there are people who simply use the wrong ego state in a life circumstance where they need to activate another ego state. But because of the traumas they have experienced in their lives, they activate that ego state that causes them the most problems. An example of this could be a man or woman who activates their child ego state when they encounter their children. And therein lies the explanation why there are parents who cannot control their children or who are afraid of them. There are parents who see their children as the friends they never had in their childhood and youth, and they try to relate to them in the same way they did with their friends at the school. With this, I am not saying that you have to be a bad father or a very bitter person, but the idea is that you develop a parent ego state that allows you to give your children what they need, and at the same time, you can enjoy that aspect of your life. Another example could be a person who activates their child ego state in front of their partner. Have you noticed that there are people who behave with their girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, or husband the same way they would with their mother or father? If you look closely, they become children, precisely because they believe that they must assume that role within the framework of a romantic relationship. That is precisely why we did all the previous exercises, as a way for you to recognize which ego states you have to deal with, because up to this point, they are activated in you without you having control of it. And so, the idea here is that you learn to control your ego states and express them at will. You must consider that the ego state is nothing other than psychic energy, which activates sensations, emotions, and physical perceptions. So, you already know that your ego state changes according to your circumstances. And therefore, as a first step, I want you to clearly define which ego state you are going to use in your life. In the first chart that I present here, I want you to determine which circumstances are most significant to you in your day. It could be meeting my romantic partner. It could be a meeting with your boss. Or it could be a visit to your parents. It is up to you to establish where are those moments in which your ego state manifests itself differently and without balance. There might be circumstances in which your ego state fits perfectly with what is needed. But here I want you to think about those moments that are conflictive or confusing for you, in that your ego state does not conform to what you expect it to do. Therefore, in the second box, I want you to write what that ego state of yours does wrong. For example, in the relationship you have with your partner, you could become a child. This state of self, children, occurs a lot in work relationships. There are employees who see the boss as a kind of father whom they have to obey in everything. And that leads to bosses taking advantage of their employees. This tends to occur quite frequently in people who develop their slave ego state. Once you have defined the ego state that manifests itself in the ground circumstances and the way in which it does so, I want you to proceed to define what that ego state should be like correctly. For example, if you are going to meet with your partner for a romantic dinner, how your romantic ego state should behave, we will call it. Let me tell you that many relationships fail because under romantic conditions, the person brings out their cynical or workaholic ego state. So you go on a romantic date and you meet a person who only talks to you about their problems. As you can infer, here the idea is that you are the one who defines, builds, and controls the ego state that you are going to use under certain circumstances. How your parent ego state should be, how the interaction you have with your children should be. Given this frame of reference, we are going to perform a very practical exercise so that you can see how you can transform your ego state at will. This exercise will allow you to gain confidence and security automatically. I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then exhale the air you have breathed. And now, I want you to project that insecure self-state in your mind and little by little transform it into your secure self-state. I want you to see yourself in your mind being the most confident and secure person in the universe. That being that begins to form little by little in your psyche is your ego state safe, trustworthy, strong. I want you to see that state of self. I want you to project in your mind that person who is you, but who for now is dissociated from your personality. Now, I want you to focus on his physical characteristics. That ego state has the physical state that you have always wanted to have. If you are a man, it has muscles, a large chest, and immediately generates in you the image of absolute strength. If you are a woman, you will notice that she is very athletic and indomitable. You can add the characteristics that for you define your physical ego state of maximum security. Now, I want you to focus on his face. You will notice that he smiles with great confidence because nothing affects him. And now, I want you to project into your heart that energy that is emanating from your ego state. You will notice how your being begins to fill with the strength, security, and confidence that this strong ego state generates in you. Now, I want you to think about a time when you felt insecure. That time when you felt very afraid because someone might hurt you or may say things to you that you didn't like. It surely changed your energy. But now, I want you to project the energy of your secure and confident self-state again, and you will notice how that fear of what another could do to you or say to you, completely dissipates. And now, on the count of 3, you are going to come back. 1, 2, 3. If you have done the exercise well, I am sure that you feel very confident and secure at this moment, because it is a remnant of the strength that you yourself managed to project. Remember that this is just one of the ego states you can transform. There are others, but we are going to leave that for another course. If you want to develop your ego states much more quickly, you already know that you can take individual coaching sessions with me. For now, let's leave it as you have learned that your ego state is not static and that you can transform it at will. The idea is that you use this technique when you face situations that could be conflictive for you.